And here we go, and we're going live in a couple seconds. Okay, we're live. Here we go.
Coming to you live is the AutoHub show, changing automotive one show at a time with Ian and Jeff. And here we go.
If you run a service drive, you know these days first impressions matter. But when your advisors are tied up with inbound phone calls, they tend to neglect their other, more important duties. And did you know 75% of all service calls are frequently asked questions in routine requests? Still, the average dealer misses up to 30% of inbound calls, adding up to a ton of missed service opportunity and increased customer churn. 68% of callers actually go elsewhere if they can't get through, which means you could be losing $60,000 to $70,000 every month in service revenue simply from missing calls. So who will pick up? Introducing Brooke.
Hi there.
Your best service scheduling assistant. Brooke is the first intelligent digital voice assistant to answer, handle, and appoint all of your inbound service calls. Hiring Brooke means absolutely no call goes unanswered, boosting your customer satisfaction and reducing your overhead costs. And talking to Brooke is like talking to a friend with human-level understanding and a friendly conversational voice. Her conversational intelligence is built on millions of actual service industry conversations, making her the easiest onboard you'll ever have. She can handle any volume of calls and follows your policies every step of the way, 24/7. That means even when the lights are off, Brooke is always on. You're probably asking, what about my specialized BDC? Even the best BDC can fall short. Unexpected volume, human error, and oversight can easily overload the system. By steering common requests and basic conversations to a smart digital assistant, you can keep your service advisors and technicians happy in your shop at optimum capacity. Hey, Brooke, why don't you tell them a bit more about yourself?
Absolutely. I collect all necessary customer and vehicle information, as well as determining the reason for servicing the vehicle. I welcome new customers and recognize returning customers while updating their profile. I work with customers to find the best day and time for their appointment while always following your policies. And I can make appointment changes on the fly, updating your scheduling tool in real time. Did I mention I can offer quotes for service and recommend the best service advisors for the job, and even arrange courtesy transportation? Finally, I know when a transfer is necessary, whether to a service advisor, roadside assistance, or a live agent. And I can do it without missing a beat.
You really do check all the boxes. Book with Brooke today. Visit Brooke.ai or call 866-942-1236. Finally, the perfect match.
Good morning and welcome. So maybe Jeff, since we are doing the Brooke show, can go over our disclaimer.
Well, it would be my pleasure. Thank you for joining us today on the Brooke Show. And although we have to tell you that the views and opinions shared today are those of course, our guests, and not necessarily Ian and I, although we're huge fans of Brooke, and we know Brooke is very apolitical anyways. But you want to read our disclaimer fully, please go to our website. Ian.
Yeah, and if you want to support the show, obviously we have some live shows coming up, but we have a new gear section. So if you want to get your coffee mug like this one or other things, I mean, they're definitely available. And stay tuned for our concert t-shirt coming soon. Anyway, let's go ahead.
Yeah. The AutoHub Show tour shirt.
Yeah. Getting pricing and hats now, so we should have it shortly. You can order online. Go ahead, Jeff.
Well, joining us today is a very special show. A sponsor of the show for quite a long time has been the fine people at Brooke.ai. And we have two of Brooke's best friends here, and who are going to tell us a little bit about things. And we're very excited to have them aboard and get finally a a Brooke show because we've been talking about Brooke for a long time. And of course, joining us, just tuning in because we love her so much, is Gail Rubenstein from Retail Resilient, although she hasn't met Brooke yet, but they could become very good friends. So as we get right into it, I'd like to introduce you to Tiffany Peeler, who is the Vice President of Sales and Operations of Proactive Dealer Solutions and Brooke.ai. And Tiffany, I'm going to actually to get you to start first, but before I do that, we've got Justin Hill, who's also the Director of Sales and Key Accounts for Brooke Proactive Dealer Solution. Too early for me to say things very clearly, but Brooke, tell us a little bit more about what this is, and let's start it off.
Okay, great. Thanks, Jeff. Thanks, Ian, for having me and Justin this morning. And I'm going to forgive that you just called me Brooke because I get that a lot.
Myself, I said, did I just do that? Sorry, Tiffany.
You did. It's okay. Now I actually answer to it because people do that very often. So yeah, thanks for having us this morning to chat a little bit about Brooke. You can catch the gist of what our tool is from the intro video that you guys just played for us. But just a high level, Brooke is a digital voice assistant. She's the first automotive specific conversational intelligence tool to support dealerships on their inbound service calls. So Brooke is able to actually answer, have an intelligent conversation with customers, answer their asked questions, like things about where you located or how late are you open on a Saturday or how much is an oil change cost, or she can actually appoint new and actually returning customers and book those directly into the dealership scheduling tool or DMS, depending on what tools that store is using. So, and she's able to do that any and all hours of the day, any and all days of the week. So 24/7 inbound service call support. And that's really just allowing dealerships to eliminate hold times or dropped calls, wrap their arms around the customers calling in to schedule service, and handle the routine requests with technology rather than having to lean on our people who tend to be doing other type of work for us.
Fantastic. It's amazing, and I do apologize, but you find yourself, well, I do anyways, referring to this as, you said, a tool, but really I really have this terrible desire to say her, and partially because it's the name, and partially because it's the familiarity and how it promotes. But
Yeah.
Justin, tell us a little bit more about your approach to this and why Brooke is such a obviously cool thing, but good for dealers.
Sure. So, we recognize that even before the pandemic, and certainly during and after that, we struggle significantly to staff appropriately when we talk about customer service or we talk about BDC. And we know, as Tiffany already mentioned, they're probably handling 5 other tasks as well. So what we recognize is our customer is the one that pays the price for that, right? So our experience is not where it needs to be. With Brooke, it allows us to provide a clear customer experience every single time a customer calls in. They get what they're looking for, which is being taken care of, whether to schedule an appointment or get additional information. And it frees up our team to handle the other 25% of calls that Brooke does not.
Oh, perfect. You hit on an interesting point there about staffing levels and everything. And Brooke neither suffers from shortages of staff or coffee breaks or anything, but that's another thing. Ian.
Yeah, so I thought it would be an interesting idea to start with an example of Brooke. So let's start with this is services example here. So I'm going to go ahead. If for those of you who are on Zoom, you will not see this video, but you will hear it. Here we go.
And what's the reason for bringing it in?
Inspection, oil change, tire rotation.
Let me make sure I'm booking the appointment correctly. You're bringing your vehicle in for an inspection, an oil change, and a tire rotation. Is that right?
Yes.
Great. Now, I just have a quick question about transportation I can offer you. Will you need to use our complimentary shuttle to take you from our dealership to your destination?
No,
Got it. Let's continue. Our first available appointment is on Wednesday, February 2nd at 10:15 a.m. Feel free to take that one or just tell me when you'd like to bring it in.
March 1st.
Okay, here's what's available for Tuesday, March 1st. I have a 8 a.m., 10:45, 2:30 p.m., or 3:45. Which one works for you?
8 a.m.
One last thing. Is it okay if we text you with reminders and updates about this service?
Yes.
You're all set to drop your vehicle off on Tuesday, March 1st at 8 a.m. How else can I help you?
That's it. Thank you.
Thank you for calling. Have a great day.
So there's a great example. I mean, I have some questions here, but voice technology has been out there in the marketplace for a while. I think I've had experience with what I consider automated voicemail or automated call directions. By pressing one, you give it verbal, and sometimes it does a good job, sometimes it doesn't. Like Apple has it, big telecommunications companies have it. I think even some banks have it. In 2024, the number of digital voice assistants is going to reach about 8.4 billion units, I believe. That's higher than the world's population. This technology is ready for the automotive industry, in your opinion? Like, what do you think? Tiffany?
Well, that one's to me. Clearly, I think it's ready. It's ready because we have deployed it in about 285 plus stores so far. And we went to market with this technology just about a year ago. So that's we've got just over 300 stores signed up, 280 plus that are live today. And that's a pretty quick adoption of a new technology in an industry that has not used anything like this in the past. We have we see Brooke booking 60+% of the inbound service calls. So customers calling in that say, I'm calling in to schedule an appointment. We're converting those at around 60+%, so more than half of the calls. We're also successfully transferring calls like roadside assistance, which I believe you have an example recording of for later. We are handling the FAQ type calls, hours, location. We are confirming existing appointments or rescheduling existing appointments. All of those do not count towards those appointment booked numbers. So we're handling successfully 75+% of the calls that are coming into a dealership. I know that Automotive's ready for it because we're doing it now, and it's outperforming most BDCs simply because it can take a bulk amount of calls at any one given point in time, right? So there's no call queue or call waiting. 1,000 calls can come to the application at any 1 second in time, and they're still going to be handled kind of the way that you just heard that they would be handled, right? I also think that Automotive is ready because this technology has been around for a long time. I mean, we have been, as consumers, interacting with conversational intelligence tools, digital voice assistants for years. We have Siri on our phones. I mean, my dad was in town recently, and the entire time he was there, that's the only way he did anything, right? Call, his wife or do this. It was through Siri. And so that's a digital voice assistant. Alexa in our house is a digital voice assistant. In addition to that, we know that digital voice technology accounted for more than $2 billion in sales, meaning that consumers are actually using this technology to transact. And there is no higher level of trust in a tool or in a technology than trusting it with your money and how you're spending your money. And so we're used to the technology. We've been using it for a long time. We're so comfortable with it that we allow it to buy our groceries or we buy products with it. Our credit card information is stored with most of it. And so I think automotive now, it's time to adopt conversational intelligence, natural language understanding, and use it to our advantage in a way that helps our customers and frees up our team member, making a better customer experience, but also improving the the working conditions for our people that are working in the lane or in a service BDC.
And have you had any discussions with the OEM from a roadside assistance point of view or customer service point of view, or possibly groups like the IRS and CRA for a better customer service experience, for example?
Well, not the IRS, not yet, and I hope not ever. But certainly with the OEMs, yeah, we're having a lot of conversations with OEMs on how they can position a technology like this to provide a better customer experience at the dealership level, but also at any at the OEM level, meaning any OEM marketing that goes out, potentially any OEM run applications or websites, making it easier for the customer to self-serve by allowing them to self-serve through Brooke potentially. Those are conversations that we are in the very, very early stages of having right now. But we want to. Everyone's trying to push customers to the website, understandably, right? We're trying to stop the phones from ringing so much. And even if we have a BDC, the phones are ringing off the hook, and we have people who call out sick or people who can't come in or whatever the case is. And it's difficult to staff for that, right? It's been a challenge that we've had forever. And so we're all trying to get the phones to stop ringing so much. The first step is make outbound status update calls, eliminate the status check calls from coming in. That's one thing. The next thing is push them to the website. I'm not sure if any of you have recently tried to book a service appointment from a website, but it is difficult.
I have.
It is not a good time. And the dealerships really have to lock down what the customer is able to book on the website on their own, understandably, because they're worried about shop loading. They're worried about making sure that they're not booking the wrong types of appointments at the wrong days or times of the day. And so even though we're pushing the customers to the website, the customers don't want to book online, nor do we make it easy for them to book online. So they're still going to end up calling us. And so there needed to be a solution for us to handle the phones.
Yeah, you had a question?
Yeah. Well, yes and no, I guess. So Tiffany, I went and booked an oil change and tire rotation actually online in my area. And I ended up calling because I was so frustrated. And then when I called, the person who answered could not answer my question. So I just wanted to know if my oil change and tire rotation was 100% covered under Jeep Wave, the Jeep Wave program, which it was. But I ended up calling. So to validate what you were saying, yes, I was irritated with my online service scheduling that was not answering anything for me that I just needed to know.
Yeah. It's really frustrating experience. I had a similar experience on the holiday here. It was Memorial Day, and my battery died. And I was like, I've got to get this figured out. And so I was trying to book online, not thinking anyone was going to be available for me when I called. And it wouldn't recognize my profile as a returning customer. It kept saying I was new and I had to fill out the whole thing. And I was like, but I've only had my car serviced at this place. So I just waited and called the next morning and was like, screw it. So
that's the thing.
Justin has to speak, I think, a little bit. He's a little lonesome. So before Jeff says something, unless Jeff has a thought, go ahead, Jeff, quick.
I was saying that something that we have to do in the industry is we have to look at ourselves a lot, and we don't. And I mean, I'm a lifelong car guy, and recently got out of the big dealership world, and I had a problem. And Tiffany, you hit it on the button. I went onto the website to try and get a hold of the dealership to get my car, and it broke down. 6 weeks away. I tried to find a service phone number, couldn't find it because there was really just a 1-800 number where you got the usual automatic, please leave a message and we'll call you. Press 1 if you want to speak to a human. We'll call you back, etc., etc. And if you had something like this, if this dealership, and I've talked about them a few times, I won't mention their name, this dealership, it was such a mess that I think something like Brooke, if I phoned in and said, look, I'm ticked, I'm mad, and they go, hey, hang on a second, let me find somebody. Ding, 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 ding. It took me 5 phone calls just to get an answer, and I finally had to go to the fix ops director to get an answer, and I had to wait for him to phone me back, and it was a day and a half later. So you hit the nail on the head.
Anyway, Justin, sorry to ignore you. That wasn't on purpose. There was just
No, it's quite all right.
So in addition to the high levels of purchase transaction, I think the number here is 164 billion in transactions by 2025. Wow, 630% increase. Why is it important giving someone or something your hard-earned money the highest form of trust? And before you answer that question, I had an experience with our local phone company. I was on hold for over an hour to talk to a person. But go ahead, Justin.
So, well, Tiffany already kind of alluded to this a little earlier, but if I'm willing to give somebody or something my hard-earned money, right? It takes a lot to earn that money, and I'm going to spend it wisely. If I'm willing to give it to someone or something, it shows that I trust in their product, I trust in their brand, I trust in their process. So the fact that you're going to see from a little over 2 billion in purchase transactions with DVAs in 2020, all the way to the 164 number that you mentioned by 2025, that humongous increase just goes to show you the willingness or the trustworthiness that people do have to use DVAs. As you mentioned a little earlier, and Tiffany hit the nail on the head, Automotive is certainly ready for this, because while our automotive customers haven't used it in automotive, to your earlier point, if they call American Airlines, they call Delta, they call their doctor, Walgreens, it doesn't matter, they're using a DVA. Our customers are truly ready for this. We have to be ready. And, Jeff, as you mentioned, I think you hit it here too. We have to look intrinsically and say, okay, how can we change to provide a better experience? Because clearly your experience was, poor is lacking in definition, but you're not the only person, right? How many other customers experience that? And what can we do? What can we look at intrinsically and say, okay, how can I improve? And how can I make this better for my customer? And that's really where a DVA really comes into play here.
Yeah, I call my brother's cell phone and it knows who I am, and it says, let me find him for you. So it's kind of funny. Anyway, so let's do an example of roadside assistance, being that that's something we were talking about. Here we go.
Thanks for calling. This call may be recorded for quality and training purposes. I'm Brooke, a virtual assistant who can understand complete sentences. Unfortunately, we're closed, but I can try to help you with things like booking an appointment or checking our business hours. So tell me, how can I help you today? I have a flat tire. I'll connect you to roadside assistance, but to make sure I get you the right service, please let me know, is your vehicle still covered by the manufacturer's warranty? Yes. Please hold while I connect you to roadside assistance.
So go ahead, Jeff.
Well, that's it's very interesting how that works. And we had a call the other day with Tiffany, and I was joking about a Big Bang Theory episode where Raj actually fell in love with Siri, and you could see how easy it become, because actually you're getting the assistance you need, and that's the beauty of that. I do have to comment, the first video we ran, the customer on the phone sounded more like a virtual being than Brooke did. It was Blue Car or whatever it was. But we've already talked about the areas, and we touched on something, and I believe Tiffany, you did, or Justin, obviously the two of you. The mundane areas is where this could probably help the most. So Tiffany, tell me a little bit more of what you think about that.
Yeah, so to understand exactly what we mean by mundane or routine type calls, you have to look at the state of service calls, right? So of all the service calls that are coming into a dealership today, about 75% of them can be handled by a non-technical person, right? They don't require an advisor. They certainly don't require a technician. They can be handled by maybe a BDC agent or a cashier or a receptionist. whoever that person is that's responsible for handling and appointing the majority of the inbound calls that are coming in. And that's mostly what we've leaned on. We've leaned on let them go to the advisors if you don't have a BDC. Let the cashiers handle overflow. Maybe let the cashiers get it first and advisors handle overflow. But the point of that is, if 75% of the calls that are coming into your service department can be handled by a non-technical person that doesn't receive a ton of training on how to answer, handle, and successfully appoint these calls, then can we do that with technology instead? Leaving those 25% of calls, customers who need or want to speak to a person, get them over to people who are going to be more available to have this conversation with them, rather than sending them to a voicemail and waiting a day and a half to get a call back, right? The 75% of the calls that are coming in, non-technical in nature, they can be handled by an untrained person. Typically, we can take on those volume of calls with technology, with the digital voice assistant instead, and send the other 25% of the customers to the people that they want. Those people are going to be more available to answer the calls. They're going to be a little bit less stressed out. And that's going to improve the employee's environment and also the customer's experience, like I talked about earlier. Outside of that, we also know that pre-pandemic, the average dealership was losing about 20 to 30% of their service calls, simply because no one was available to answer the phone. They got to a voicemail, didn't leave a message, they hung up while on hold. Our studies found that about 68% of the customers that did not get connected to the department actually didn't call back, right? So only about 20-something% of your customers were calling you back. So with this technology, not only are we handling those routine type calls, but we're handling all of them. We're no longer allowing that 20-30% to get lost in a black hole, right? We're there to capture that customer.
Well, that's a very interesting point you made, because when your advisors are handling all of the normal calls that can be handled by untrained people, they can actually do a better job on other things. And my aforementioned experience was, I could not pay for my car without the advisor speaking to me, and the advisor knew I was picking up the car. And so in this particular case, you get a Brooke that picks it up and say, hey, I just want to pick my car up because the tow truck's coming to tow it to somebody else that's way better than you. They can say, let me get you a cashier. Justin, can you expand on staffing challenges then, please?
Of course. So, as we touched on a little bit earlier, that's one of the hardest hit positions in a dealership. But even still, for years and years, we have struggled to be able to staff, train, retrain, and maintain these people in our stores. One problem is you simply can't find enough people to begin with. The other problem is that the 25% of calls that Tiffany mentioned that are not mundane have become more complex in nature. So they require somebody with more training, more upskilled conversation, phone skills, if you will, to be able to handle these calls. Well, the problem is we're losing people so quickly, we can't even train them to handle a bulk of the 75, much less the 25. So, if I could focus on the 75% with Brooke or a DVA and have the 25% handled by the 2 or 3 reps that I have that are upskilled and trained, what experience does that now create for my consumer? Does it make it easier for you to get through on the call that you needed? Not to mention, you go back to the advisor piece, right? We recognize that we don't want advisors handling inbound calls. We want them taking care of the customer right in front of them. As a former advisor myself, when the phone would ring and I had a customer in front of me, I had to make a hard decision. I ignore the person in front of me, or I ignore the person on the phone. And it's a lose-lose. If I ignore the customer in front of me and I answer the phone, they're frustrated. If I don't answer the phone, the customer in front of me is like, oh, this is why I had to call 4 times to get in here, right? There's no win. So why not take that off of your team and allow them to focus on what they should be focused on, which is providing a good in-store experience. but having the comfort of knowing that your phone experience is consistent every time.
Yeah, I'd like to piggyback on that for a minute too and share kind of an unexpected side effect that we've had with Brooke too. For those stores or groups that have staffed and high performing BDCs for service, the challenge is retaining those employees, right? Like right now, we just want to hold on to the good people we got with like all that is good. And what we've noticed with Brooke in those environments, by using Brooke upfront in those environments to handle the brunt of the calls and leave those people available to handle the tough ones, or even more importantly, the outbound calls, decline repair, special order parts, maintenance retention, CSI, whatever it is you need to focus on. And we're also seeing that it's drastically improving the departments that they work in, their environments, right? So not only can we help take the load off of service advisors or receptionists or cashiers who are doing a ton of other jobs, but in these BDCs, it allows the stores or the groups to bonus a little heavier on outbound appointments that show and result in a closed RO, because now we're not paying show bonuses on those easy inbound appointment calls. So it allows us to bonus heavier on the outbound. It allows us to potentially pay a little bit more on the hourly. It allows us to adjust hours, because if you don't need to worry so much about staffing, so to handle for those fluctuations in inbound call volume, Monday mornings, Wednesday mornings, right? Afternoon calls. If you can lean on technology to handle the brunt of that and eliminate maybe every Saturday, or do one Saturday a month for certain people that can share that load, you're making a more enjoyable work-life balance, and you're able to pay a better wage and bonus on the activities that are really going to drive revenue for the store, and therefore retain those high quality employees that you can invest a little bit more time and into training on, right? So that's actually something that we've seen happen, which wasn't exactly expected at first, but now that we're seeing it take place, it makes total sense.
Also, I mean, obviously we're coming into winter tire swap season, which we know is, challenging for dealers, even if they have tire storage, and everybody wants their tires as soon as it gets cold. And some of them want it after it's already cold. But let's play an example of that. So I'm just going to move this over.
Ian, don't forget they're in North Carolina. I don't know if they
okay, so when you got to move your slip.
It's okay. We're in North Carolina, but Brooke is everywhere.
She's worldwide.
Okay, no problem. So here we go. Share screen. I think I can do this. 1 second. I'm asking a lot, but here we go.
You're bringing your vehicle in for a tire replacement. Is that right?
Yes.
Great. Are you looking to buy new tires, have a problem with a tire, or need a seasonal tire swap?
Seasonal tire swap.
Are the tires already mounted on their own rims?
Yes.
Now, I just have a quick question about transportation I can offer you. Will you need to use our complimentary shuttle to take you from our dealership to your destination?
No.
Okay. The first available appointment I have is Friday, December 17th at 7:15 a.m. Does that work for you?
Yes.
You're all set for Friday, December 17th at 7:15 a.m. How else can I help you?
That's everything.
Hold on for just a moment.
So that's the end of that video. So I was curious, what exactly does Brooke do and not do? Maybe Justin wants to answer that one.
Sure. So Brooke, again, Tiffany kind of already mentioned it, but I'll elaborate a little more. So Brooke can handle 75% of all inbound calls. So she can handle diagnostic calls. She can handle maintenance, tire swap. Again, like we've heard earlier, roadside assistance, general information. So your hours of operation, location. She can handle all of these inbound calls, no matter what type. We have different examples of her handling check engine lights, or even steering wheel concerns, drivability concerns. And then again, from a maintenance standpoint, not only on an inbound call can she schedule those, but if it's a returning customer, she has a feature available that will actually allow Brooke to let them know if they're due for manufacturer recommended service and can add that to the RO, which we know sometimes our BDC may not ask that question or may not add that to. She has that capability. She can also determine if they have a recall available and can add that recall to the RO as well.
Interesting. So if I've got a customer with maybe multiple concerns or maybe more challenging concerns that maybe your average BDC person may or may not be able to handle, is that something we can throw Brooke into the fray? I mean, what do you think, Tiffany?
Yeah, I think to an extent. So Brooke can handle and do a lot, all your maintenance type of questions or fairly routine appointment requests, even customers who are calling in with multiple issues that need to have multiple services booked, like the first call example that we played. Customers, obviously the tire swap is kind of a special call that Brooke is able to handle successfully. Upselling on the inbound call, like Justin mentioned, there's always going to be calls that Brooke cannot handle. There's going to be situations where the customer wants to speak to a person. And as long as she asks, if a customer says to the application, I want to talk to somebody or a representative, or starts hitting a bunch of buttons trying to get to a receptionist, Brooke will respond with, I understand you'd like to speak to somebody, but to ensure I get you to the right place, what are you looking to do today? Check on the status of a vehicle, schedule an appointment. If they say schedule an appointment, she'll make a second attempt to schedule. And if they ask for a person, she's going to transfer that caller. So if it gets to the point where maybe the dealership doesn't want to allow the tool to schedule a recall request, and a customer calls in because they have a recall on their vehicle, and the dealer says, no, Brooke, you don't book recalls because parts and all the things, we want you to transfer those to our team or maybe to our agents to handle instead of the application booking, then those calls are going to be transferred. So Brooke will respond with, please hold while I transfer you to a service specialist that can help. So
ability to customize then? So by the store type of customer?
There are several different ways to customize how different calls are handled and which ones get transferred and which ones don't. So the dealer really drives that. The service manager really drives that. It's really what works in the lane for that team. Every service department is maybe structured a little bit different. And so they're really able to drive how they use the application, what she appoints, what she doesn't, how far out she books certain things. Maybe you have a store that wants to allow the application to book a recall. And they just want to make sure that they book that recall out 7 days so they have time to order the parts, get the parts. We can do that. It just kind of comes down to how does the dealership want to use it. So we can handle the brunt of the calls. We can handle difficult calls. I've listened to calls where I wouldn't be able to understand what the customer was asking for as a person, but the technology was able to understand and appoint successfully. We can handle difficult calls. There's always going to be some that we can't, but I think we've proven at this point, a year in, we can handle about 70% of them. And convert at least half or more than half of the customers calling in to schedule an appointment.
So let me, I'm just going to play an example here because we know how important upselling is. I mean, I work for Dealer Effects, and the whole idea behind that was having a constant process for the customer online or in store. And obviously, this would augment that. But let's try an example here. 1 second.
It also sounds like, too, there's less time for the customers spending on hold while they wait for somebody.
Exactly.
Press 2 to hold. Which Muzak did you want? I've heard
one to hang up.
You have a choice of Muzak. Which Muzak would you like? You want pop?
I'm Brooke, a virtual assistant who can understand complete sentences. Tell me, how can I help you today?
I'd like to make service.
Great. I can help you with that. I found a profile associated with the phone number you called from. What vehicle is this for?
The Toyota Corolla.
Great. And what's the approximate mileage?
About 35,000 miles.
Yes.
And what's the reason for bringing it in?
Normal service.
Let me make sure I'm booking the appointment correctly. You're bringing your vehicle in for service, is that right?
That's correct.
Great. My records indicate that this vehicle is also due for mileage-based maintenance. Would you like to add that to your appointment?
Yes.
Okay, it's been added. Now, I just have a quick question about transportation I can offer you. Will you need to use our complimentary shuttle to take you from our dealership to your destination?
No.
Got it. Let's continue. Our first available appointment is Thursday, August 18th at 4:30 p.m. Feel free to take that one or just tell me when you'd like to bring it in.
Thursday at 4:30.
I'm sorry, but I picked up some background noise. If you need a moment to check your calendar, please just ask me to wait. The first available appointment time I have is Thursday, August 18th at 4:30 p.m. Does that work for you?
I believe that's it. So that gives you, and it did work for him, by the way, just to not leave you hanging.
Okay.
Go ahead, Jeff.
Well, I have to tell you, I picked up on something terrific there, which was the sound of the keyboard. I'm sitting there going, is that a keyboard sound? It was so great. And even I got some background noise there, and I'm going to ask you this question, but before I say that, it sounds like, and Tiffany, please tell me if I'm wrong, that the caller sounds more. It seems that all the callers sound more robotic than Brooke, because they're not sure how to respond.
Yeah, I think we see this a lot with stores when they first sign up, is their customers, like I think we all naturally do. When you are met with a digital assistant, you tend to respond like a digital assistant, right? Tomorrow at, and so we hear that sometimes, but we've seen stores that once they're on for a good 6 months, that changes. We have a lot of dealerships too that will really take the time to educate their customers, just like we did like 10 years ago when we started up BDCs. We had to educate the customer on this, customer care department, and they're here to be available to take your calls and set you up and all the things. And the stores that educate their customers the most on, hey, we've got this new tool, it's available 24/7 for you to schedule. If you need to talk to somebody, tell her and she'll transfer you. You'll hear their customers just speak a little bit more naturally. But even 6 months in, you start to hear them change, right? The tone of the customer changes completely. The customer's opting in to use the tool to self-serve really starts to increase over time, and as they get used to interacting with the application.
Okay.
And the typing is there just, we're obviously integrating directly with the dealership's tools. So anytime that we are looking for availability for that type of work, if a customer is calling in and ultimately they need a diagnostic, we're pulling a diag code and we're looking at their schedules depending on how many teams they have, what is my next available appointment for a diag opcode for that type of work. And so while the application is doing all of that, it's thinking. And so we filled that noise with just some typing sounds. The customer, hears that we're working on your behalf. There's no like dead air, but it still only takes a couple of seconds.
It is so awesome. And from my opinion anyways. So believe it or not, there are other DVAs out there. I know Brooke is the best, etc. But how does Brooke differ from other DVAs that are coming out in the marketplace? Tiffany, I'll continue with you.
All right, I'll kick it off and then we'll pass it over to Justin. So yeah, there are other applications that exist out in the out in automotive today. Other wonderful tools. I think some of the key differentiators is one, Brooke.ai was built by automotive experts. Proactive Dealer Solutions has been in the business for 23 years. And we started in specializing in the implementation and development of sales and service BDCs. So we literally wrote the script on the inbound service call. We wrote the process for service. We understand how this technology needs to function for the lane, how it needs to work for a service manager, how it needs to work for advisors and technicians, how it needs to work to spread work across a day, right? From a shop loading standpoint, we don't want to underbook or overbook the drive. We don't want to schedule a ton of waiters and have a waiting room full of, unhappy customers. We need to be careful about how many waiters we book versus drop off versus loaners, et cetera, et cetera. So this tool was built by automotive experts that have been in the industry for years. That's the first thing. The second thing is our ability to integrate directly with DMS systems. So if you're a store that doesn't have a scheduling tool, a traditional scheduling tool, or maybe you have one that's provided to you by the manufacturer that's available on the website, but your advisors are working out of the DMS, our application can integrate directly and book appointments directly into the DMS system while still respecting your capacities and policies. We're able to do that within our application. The other thing is we use conversational intelligence. We use natural language understanding and speech analytics and speech to text engines that we built for the automotive industry. So we, have owned the technology, and we do that, but we also leverage intent analysts kind of behind the scenes. And so what that means is if our application ever gets tied up on a call, if they don't understand what the customer's asking for or how to respond correctly, we have a level of human intervention that can get the screen pop, hear the last thing that the customer stated, and is told how to handle that. And that's then applied to machine learning. So our application is literally getting better and smarter every single day. And then another couple of things that I think are different for us is that we validate what the customer is asking for, what they're scheduling for. So you've heard it a couple of times where the customer, where Brooke says, make sure I'm scheduling the appointment correctly. You're calling in for X. And the customer says, yes. That's a really important differentiator. We do that because we want to ensure, did we grab the right app code to book into the scheduling tool? And that's important, again, from a shop loading standpoint. If you are using a tool that doesn't have any human intervention and is only using AI, and is not validating what the customer is coming in for, then you run the risk of booking appointments incorrectly for the wrong services, right? So that could drastically screw up the schedule.
Yes.
Obviously, we have multiple language ability in North America, be it where I live, which is French and various Asian languages, but also in the US, Spanish and various other languages. Is Brooke able to adapt to those different languages or give customers options?
So Spanish, we are able to. The way that we handle Spanish calls today, because again, Brooke is live in stores all across the US and in Canada, actually. And the way that we handle Spanish calls is the application can recognize when a customer is speaking Spanish, and it will respond in Spanish and say, in Spanish, I'm so sorry, I don't speak Spanish. Can you please speak to me in English? And then if the customer speaks in English, then we're able to appoint, even if they have an accent. We've got stores using the tool that are in Southern Texas. We have stores in Miami that are using the application. So, a heavy population of Spanish-speaking customers, and we don't really see a big impact on performance numbers because they typically will speak in English, the application. However, if they don't and they continue to speak Spanish, we transfer that call either to somebody in the dealership, if they have like a designated person who can, we have like a Spanish speaking line, or we can transfer those calls to some of our agents that work in our virtual BDC, and we have Spanish speaking agents that can answer the call and handle that customer.
We have solutions available for that scenario.
Yes. Yeah. And we are looking next year to expand to other languages. First will be to actually do calls in Spanish. the way that we do in English, and then eventually French Canadian.
Eventually, the North American French. Just in case folks out there want to get a sense of Brooke, obviously you can book a demo right on Brooke.ai. But more importantly, if you want to hear this for yourself and not just the video calls or the audio calls that I did, if you see here on Brooke in Action, if you click on that on Brooke.ai, you'll get a list of different calls. So if you wanted to get a sense of how that actually works for yourself, I'd highly recommend that. Jeff, did you have any other questions for the Brooke team? Or does anyone else have questions? I know we have Super Sue on the call, so maybe she has some thoughts.
Well, waiting for anybody to formulate some questions. I just want to know where in Brooke's vocabulary is the term "your call is important to us," because I didn't hear it and I'm thoroughly impressed with that.
Yeah, it's not there.
It was because Justin was saying that because a while back when he was mentioning that as a service advisor, and I've seen it 1,000 times. There's the advisor sitting there talking to somebody, and the phone rings and the phone rings, or it comes over the PA. You know, Justin line one, Justin line one, Justin line one, Justin. And what they're telling the customer, either on the phone or in person, is you are not important to me. And it struck me, and not just being an advertisement for you, which of course this is the Brooke Show, but really, if you think about it from a customer standpoint, is they're getting that they're important. They're getting their questions are being answered. They're not sitting on hold. They're not pressing one and listening to "your call is important to us." Listen to Muzak. And so, Justin, is this a product of, or was this something personally or purposefully purposely attended to in the development of Brooke?
You know, great question. So obviously, as Tiffany mentioned towards the beginning of the show, like we've been doing this a long time. So we've been in the industry 23 years. We have performance coaches that travel all over the nation, both United States and Canada, and we actually go in and physically walk the walk and train these advisors, these salespeople, these BDC agents. So, and having automotive experts here working at our company as well, we get to see firsthand exactly what they still experience versus, not to mention what we personally experienced when we were in the stores. So yes, certainly when we started to develop Brooke and we started to look at, okay, what can we develop for our automotive partners that is really going to help take their customer experience to the next level, we take all of that into account, right? We recognize that, okay, it's the point you mentioned is perfect, right? Your call is important. Is it though? Because if it's important, then you wouldn't leave me on hold 4 to 6 minutes, right? And that's typically what it takes. So, going into stores and seeing that they're still struggling with that, absolutely, that was something we took into account when we developed Brooke for our partners.
What about parts can you hold? Are you fixing that problem?
Oh, no.
But we'll see what we're able to do in the future.
What about the sound?
You never know.
Of the phone dropping down on the counter? Does Brooke have that? Just kidding.
Fortunately, she doesn't have that
No,
noise.
fortunately not. Yeah.
I'll never forget, Ian, you brought that up. I'll never forget. And I hopefully I can say it, listening to a Tom Stuker training on phone calls. And he played back recordings to a dealer. And he called into the dealer and the guy said, "Parts, can you hold?" Clunk. And the phone went down on the counter. It's one of those.
It's in the dealership from the sales department.
And you can see, I'm really glad that this has developed. I mean, you mentioned 23 years. My first experience with Proactive was when I met Ian back in the early 2011, when Proactive set up a BDC at the dealer group I was at. And, my life went downhill after I met, no, just kidding. Ian was a highlight there, but it was a great thing. And it is the point of taking care of a customer. A BDC, tell me I'm wrong, came about because service advisors couldn't do it. And
Right.
There's only, in a big dealership, there's 8 service advisors and 29 calls at one time. So you had somebody do it. Now we're discovering the BDC is having trouble handling those, and especially where they can go.
Yeah,
And
even in Toyota, I mean, they had 25 service advisors. They have a 12-person BDC in that store. It's, I think, a 1-point store.
yeah. But the question I have is, where did everybody go? Because nobody has staff. But we're nearing the end of the show. Tiffany, Justin, parting comments?
No, thanks again for having us this morning and listening to an hour-long episode on digital voice assistants. We love you guys and we appreciate the time.
Very much.
Justin, no thoughts?
We would like to thank you both for being here, to thank Brooke for the support. You're a major part of our show. And almost every episode, we not only run the clip, but we talk about it because it's such a revelation in the industry after sitting on hold and having personal experiences of, so it's great. Ian, I'll leave it for you to close.
Kidding. I was on hold for an hour at the local telecommunications company, and one of the options was, what news act did you want when you're going to be on hold for an hour? And then I got to a person, he says, oh, can't you do it on the website? I said, why am I calling you if I can do it on the website? He goes, what do you mean? Do you think I'd wait for an hour if I could do it on the website? He says, I don't know. I'm like, really? Anyway, have yourself a great week, and thanks very much. And of course, send us your sizes. We've got some shirts for you when we get them.
And, I have to leave this because I do this every time anybody's on the show that's below halfway down the US and South, is thank y'all for being here.
Darlin, thanks to y'all, darling. There we go.
Darlin, I just say y'all.
Thanks for joining us. It was a great show, and follow us anywhere you would like on your favorite podcast, on Facebook, on LinkedIn, and of course on our YouTube, or subscribe to our own channel.